What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another critter format video. And as you may have seen in my last video, my first duel in the format, I tried out Mass Control, and I had a tough time with the deck because it does take some level of knowledge of the format, and it can be tricky when you first pick it up. So I decided to switch over to a different deck that I think is a bit easier to play when you're first picking up the format, and that is Paolo NS's Exodia deck. This is the deck list that Paolo NS used to win the most recent Critter format tournament held in the Format Library Discord. And I think this deck is a really, really good deck. Whereas in past formats, Exodia has been more of a stall deck, just buying your time until you can hard draw into all the pieces. In this format, it still is a stall deck somewhat, but it also becomes more of like a combo deck, I'd say. Which of the Black Forest and Sangan both give you ways to add pieces to your hand, and things like Last Will can be used to fetch them out. Also, monsters like Thunder Dragon can serve double duty, both thinning down your deck and providing you monsters that you contribute over your recruiters with. You can pull off some pretty crazy plays to amass multiple pieces in hand in one turn, which you may or may not see in the game. And then after going through all this crazy combo in game one, you can side into a more aggressive deck for games 2 and 3. As for the other cards in the deck, we're also playing 4 defenders, just walls that you can bring out on the field. They can be tough for your opponent to get over. And I think this is a very good inclusion. They can buy you time when you need it. And since things like reinforcements are a lot less common in this format, your opponent may be less prepared for these sorts of walls than they would have been in the past. In addition, Magician of Faith and Mask of Darkness can loop your powerful spells, whether those be like stall spells like Swords of Revealing Light or Wuboku, or whether it be things like Pot of Greed to draw deeper, Monster Reborn to bring back a recruiter, Solemn Judgment to negate an opponent's powerful effect. These cards just have a lot of utility in the deck and can be super, super powerful. For the other spells, we have Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Reborn, Pot of Greed, Raigeki. The Power 5 cards, all incredibly good. Change of Heart can be pseudo removal when combined with Thunder Dragon. It can also let you trigger your opponent's flip effects, which is pretty nice. Dark Hole can be used to destroy your own recruiters when you need it, which is also pretty nice. Monster Reborn, as I mentioned, gets you back your recruiters, which is great. Pot of Greed draws you deeper into your deck. And while Raigeki may just be removal for your opponent's monsters, it's still a lot of removal, so it's pretty good. 2 Last Will can fetch out your recruiters more easily. And since each recruiter basically represents an Exodia piece in hand, this can be insanely good. And an additional Fisher serves as more removal, which is pretty great. 2 swords I already mentioned are great stall tools. For the traps, Mirror Force is great if you can pull it off, clearing away your opponent's entire attacking board. 3 Solemn Judgment is great at just dealing with whatever your opponent might do to try and break through your stalling. So an incredibly powerful card in a deck like this, which really wants its combos to go through and also to prevent its opponent from really making big offensive pushes. 3 Trap Holes as more removal. 3 Wuboku to protect your monsters and your life points. Great in any sort of deck that's stalling for a bit like this one is. And then, as I mentioned, we have a Smokescreen aside into a bit more of an aggressive deck. Cannon Soldier, 2 Mass Sorcerers, and 6 1800 Beaters. We also have another Magician of Faith to get back power spells more often. 2 Fisher to provide more removal. 2 Heavy Storm to clear the way for our aggressive threats. And 1 Robin Goblin in case we want to add an aspect of hand control. But that's the deck. I think it's really, really cool. And you might not think it's that cool just looking at it, but maybe once you see it in action, you'll come over to my side on this. Before we dive into the duels, if you enjoy this sort of content, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps a lot. We're around like 135, 136 subscribers right now. It would be great if we could get to 150 soon. That is a super cool milestone, and I'd love to hit it with y'all. But anyways, with all that out of the way, let's dive into the games. We've got a game against KOF 1996, who I believe we have not featured on the channel before. You know, new format, new duelists. Very exciting to have them on for the first time. And let's see how this game goes. So, it looks like they won the rock, paper, scissors, so they're going to go first, and we're going to go second. This is a pretty decent hand. We have 2 recruiters to represent 2 pieces if they need to be. Trap Hole to deal with a monster that they potentially bring out. Solemn Judgment to deal with whatever, spells or traps they might have, or if they bring out a particularly impactful monster. So this is pretty good. They're going to Pot of Greed, which is pretty good for them. And they're going to set 2 and pass. Thunder Dragon's an okay draw. We're just going to discard it off, grab 2 more from the deck. It deck thins, It also can trigger our recruiters if we need it to. So I think what we should do here is just set a Sangan and set a Trap Hole pass. We could set the Solemn as well in case they wanted a Heavy Storm. We could Solemn to prevent the Trap Hole from dying. But if they Heavy Storm this board, especially since they already have a card set, I think we're coming out ahead in that Heavy Storm. So I'm fine with just T-setting and passing. They're going to Swords, flip up the Sangan, then flip up the Witch, and we're debating about whether we Trap Hole this. I don't think we do, because if we Trap Hole this, then they get a beater to hand, so it's not really worth for us to do that. They're just going to attack into the Sangan. Sangan will die. We'll grab an Exodia piece. We could have grabbed like a Defender here to bolster our board a bit, but we do have another Sangan in hand for if we do need to search, like a Defender or something, to protect ourselves here. So I figure we can use the second search on that. They're just going to set another pass back to us. We draw another Trap Hole, which is maybe making us think that we should have Trap Holed the Witch, but then again, we wouldn't have had it last turn if we needed it. We're just going to set the Sangan, set Solemn Judgment, pass back to them. I think maybe this was a mistake, but then again, like, they've got 2 cards on board, so they're unlikely to Heavy Storm us here. So I think we're fine setting a Solemn. We don't set the Trap Hole because we figured that their set monster probably isn't a beater, so we probably won't be able to Trap Hole their set if they flip it up. And we can just Trap Hole a beater that they bring out, set out the Trap Hole that we have in hand for next turn. This place sort of just dodges around heavy a little bit, so they're going to activate Last Will now, summon Cannon Soldier, and we will have to think here, because if they use Cannon Soldier's effect with priority, or if we Trap Hole the Cannon Soldier, then a monster will be going from their field to the graveyard, and thus the Last Will be able to trigger. So if we Solemn Judgment this, we can actually prevent Cannon Soldier from being able to trigger its effect. And also, since it was negated from actually hitting the field, it won't count for being sent to the field to the graveyard. So Last Will won't be able to trigger off of that. So it is 4,000 life points that we'd be paying, and they are likely able to hit over our set. But they're clearly activating Last Will for a reason, and also they can get off a lot of damage with the Cannon Soldier potentially. So I think we are just going to activate Solemn Judgment here, negate the summon of the Cannon Soldier, and unfortunately they do have a way to trigger the Last Will anyways. They're going to Dark Hole the whole board. We'll be able to search a piece, but they'll be able to search 2 monsters with their Sangan and Witch, and also they'll be able to bring out an additional monster with the Last Will. So maybe, honestly, we should have searched like a Defender or something that could protect ourselves here. But we didn't think of it, and now we're staring down a bunch of potential monsters that can get in without many good ways to deal with this. So this is kind of scary. We do draw a wall, though, so we aren't punished for not searching one. We're just going to set the wall, pass back to them. Again, we don't have to set the other Trap Hole, because if they bring out a monster, we can Trap Hole it, and then that's our 1 Trap Hole use per turn. So no reason to set the other. They're going to Raigeki our wall, going super aggressive, and they are going to summon out a white magical hat here. That could be really bad if it connects, so we're just going to activate the trap hole, getting rid of it. So we are going to take 1,000, but at least we're not going to have a card discarded out of our hand. They're going to set one pass back to us. Pot of Greed's a great draw here. We really needed that Pot of Greed. We draw 2. Okay, Dark Hole and Last Will aren't the best. This is kind of unfortunate here. We can't actually trigger Last Will off of the Dark Hole because we don't have any monsters in hand. We do have Trap Hole to protect against whatever other monster they might bring out, but we're feeling pretty bad about this. We're going to set the Last Will here, and yes, this does play into heavy a bit, but the reason we set the Last Will is that if they summon out a monster we Trap Hole, and they have something like Reborn or something, then they'll know that the coast is clear to Reborn and attack in for game. Here, at least, there's a bit more question as to whether that's the right thing to do. But, you know, this is kind of a risk that they could just heavy our board away, and we could lose from that. They're going to attack for 1,000, though, and just set one, pass back to us. We're feeling very good about that. And we draw a Reborn of our own. And this is actually incredibly good because while it may not look it, we actually can potentially win the game right here. How, you may ask? Well, let's watch and find out. So we're going to think about it for a bit to actually assemble the combo because it is a bit of a tricky ordering sort of thing to actually make sure this works. And if they do have like a Solemn Judgment or something, then we could be dead in the water. But if that's not Solemn, I think we do just win here. So we are just going to activate Reborn and bring back a Sangan. Activate Last Will. Activate another Last Will. And then we could activate Dark Hole here, and that would trigger both Last Wills. But that wouldn't win us the game. That would just get us one search. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to Tribute set over this Sangan. Add a piece to hand, trigger the Last Wills, bringing out 2 Witches to the field, and now if this Dark Hole connects, we do win the game. If they do have Solemn for the Dark Hole at this point, we're actually okay with that, because we've got a board of defenders, and no matter what, our Witches are going to die at some point, so we will be getting those pieces to hand. But we're going to activate Dark Hole. Looks like they don't have the Solemn. Yeah, looks like it was just a bluff. So we will be able to destroy both Witches, grab the pieces from hand, and they know that we'll have 5 pieces in hand since we searched every piece that we had there. So they'll just admit defeat. So game 1, we played it kind of riskily, but we were able to manage to pull it out by the skin of our teeth, just getting some insanely good top decks. And being able to assemble just full combo, basically. Add 3 pieces to hand in 1 turn, and that was enough. So I hope that showed off a bit that Exodia isn't, you know, it's the sort of typical stall deck that it was in past formats. It's very much become a sort of combo deck, which is pretty awesome to see, in my opinion at least. Anyway, now that we've pulled off the combo, we're just going to side into the aggressive strategy. We don't side in the Robin Goblin, at least I don't. I think Paolo might when he plays it, but I personally don't really think it's worth it. I don't know. I guess it would be worth if we get it off, if we get its effect off at least once. But I just don't feel like playing it in the deck. I decided in the 14 other cards. Maybe in the future I'll try siding in the Robin Goblin, seeing how it works. But for now, I'm just siding in the more aggressive package without the hand control elements. So, our opponent is going to let us go first here. Not quite sure why they do that, but, you know, we're not going to complain about it. And this is a fairly good hand here. We've got some very powerful cards in hand, and also a beater if we need it. We're not going to bring out the beater, though. We're just going to set the Mass Sorcerer, set a Mirror Force, and pass back to them. The reason we do this is because with 1 card on the field, they might not want a heavy. But if they do bring out a beater that can attack over the Mass Sorcerer, we can Mirror Force it, and then flip up the Mass Sorcerer next turn, get in for damage. If they don't bring out a beater like that, you know, we can bring out the Lodge in, attack into their set, and attack directly with Mass Sorcerer. So there are plenty of ways that this can work out for us here. They're going to activate swords, flip up our mass sorcerer, and then fisher it away. Kind of unfortunate. They're going to bring out Witch, and they will be able to attack in here for 18. Or not for 18, for 11. And we're just going to take it. We don't really want to Mirror Force the Witch. That would be really bad for us, actually. So we're, just going to take that and hope we draw something good. We do. We draw another Witch, which means that we can set the Witch, just pass back to them. We don't really need to commit more to board. If they do bring out a beater to beat over the Witch, then we might consider Mirror Forcing that. But they do bring out the Lodge-In, and they will just attack in with everything. And we do just Mirror Force here. They do get a search off the Witch, but we're depriving them of 2 cards, so not the worst thing in the world. And they're just going to pass back to us. Trap Hole's pretty good. We'll just set the Trap Hole, pass back to them. Again, we can just use the Trap Hole on if they bring out a monster that can get over the 1200 defense on Witch. They're going to Reborn back a Lodge-In, presumably. Oh, they're Reborning back a Witch. Okay, so this is pretty good for them because they get another search off this, so they get some more card advantage here. And they're just going to attack into our Witch. They can't get over it, so we're fine with that. They're just going to set 1, pass back to us. Turn 3 on swords. We're just going to leave things as they are. They've used up Reborn, so we know that they can't special summon a monster to get over Witch. So we can just Trap Hole whatever they bring out. They're not going to use Cancel's Effect with priority. We are just going to Trap Hole it then. They're going to set 1, pass back to us, and we draw probably the best card we could have drawn in this scenario. We're going to activate Heavy Storm, and they're going to let it all go. And reveal that they're on Stimpak, which is a very cool card, especially if you're going up against a more defensive deck. I'm excited to experiment with it in some other decks, but great to see that they're playing it. Anyways, we're just going to bring out a Lodge-In and attack in with everything. We're going to attack over the Witch, then get in with the Witch, and they will get to search out a Lodge-In, which is kind of unfortunate. We'll set the Solemn just in case, but they're going to bring out another Witch, and they're going to set 1, pass back to us, which we're fine with this. We'll just attack in with the Lodge-In and then attack them directly. They do get a search here. They're going to search out the Sangan, but we're very fine with that. We'll pass back to them. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. That could be a very annoying card potentially, like a flip monster. It could also just be a Witch, but we may just have game here actually. If we Raigeki away their monster and then summon out the 7-colored fish, we just win. And we have Solemn to deal with whatever their set card is. So we're just going to bring out the fish and Raigeki away their monster, and that will be the end of the game. That was just a bluff again. So I hope that this showed both the power of Exodia in Game 1 and also the power of this sort of smokescreen side deck in Game 2. I think that Exodia is a great deck for beginners to the format like me to pick up and just try and play with, because I think that Game 1 emphasizes like playing defensively and learning when to use your Solemn Judgments, when to use your Mirror Forces, just really teaching you how to use a lot of the new powerful cards in Critter format. And then Games 2 and 3 lets you learn how to play a bit more aggressively. And I think combining the skills that you learn from playing both the main deck Exodia and also the smokescreen side of more aggro, I think that prepares you for playing a bit more complicated decks like Masked Control. But I hope you enjoyed seeing these duels and seeing the more combo nature of Exodia. This definitely won't be the last video that I make on this Exodia deck because, as I said, I think it's really, really cool. So if you want to make sure that you catch those videos, definitely subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.